afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this IT governance webinar on fast tracking your small or medium business to ISO 27001 certification in 3 months or less. My name is Alan Calder. I'm your host for this afternoon, and I've been in the business of ISO 27001 and cybersecurity for some 20 plus years. The first organization certified to what is now ISO 27001. I was the chief executive of that. I wrote a book about it. That's now in its 8th edition. I've written a number of other books around ISO 27001, cybersecurity, EU GDPR, cyber resilience, and so on. I'm going to be talking today about how we can make ISO 27001 certification really straightforward. So as a company, IT Governance has some 20 years of experience. We have about 180 people in the business. We've got very deep expertise in our consultants, our trainers, our subject matter experts. We probably know more about how to comply with ISO 27001 than any certification body in the world. We have 12,000 clients across 5 continents and a very comprehensive ISO 27001 product and service offering. With that offering, we've helped some 1,300 organizations prepare and maintain ISO 27001 compliance. We've trained thousands and thousands of people on lead implementer and lead auditor training courses. We're a Cyber Essentials certification body, and we have more than 2,500 customers using our governance, risk and compliance software, and multiple accreditations. And the multiple accreditations are a kind of reflection of the commitment to quality that you get from IT governance. Our net promoter score is sitting at 63, which is just a small nip off world class in service terms. We continue to have very strong Trustpilot reviews, so you can rely on the quality of service that you get from us, because it's not just us saying it's good, it is lots and lots and lots of our customers. So today I'm going to be talking about how to fast track your approach, how to fast track ISO 27001 certification compared to traditional ways of getting a management system that is capable of certification to that standard. I'll talk a bit about how the process works, how audits and showcase evidence of an active information security management system, and then I'll have a look at going beyond ISO 27001 in an environment where, again, it's easy to do that. And as ever, if you find that you have questions as we go through this webinar, please do turn to the GoToWebinar control panel, which I hope is in front of you on your screen. On it, the second up from the bottom, you'll see a band called questions. If you click on that, you can type questions into that. Please do feel free to type questions in there as they occur to you. And when I come to the end of the prepared presentation, which will be about 35 or 40 minutes from now, I'll then take any questions that you've either put up in that period or that come up at that time. I'll share the question and I'll share the answer to the best of my ability. So that's the agenda, that's the plan for this afternoon. So the fast track approach to ISO 27001 certification compared to traditional options. And it's probably just worth starting with a bit of the kind of context, which is data breaches and cyber threats are not just a problem for large corporations, they're a critical concern for small and medium-sized businesses as well, and probably in many ways an even greater concern, because enterprises, while they might be targeted, also can afford significant cybersecurity and compliance teams. They can afford significant investment in processes and technology to protect themselves. Small and medium businesses, not so much. Not so much because we don't have as much money, we don't have as much in the way of resources, and cyber criminals know that, so they target smaller businesses, because what they can steal from 5 or 10 or 20 small businesses is probably a lot more than they can steal from one enterprise, and a lot easier for them to do that. ISO 27001 is the single international standard for managing information security. It's a standard which offers a systematic approach to securing sensitive company and customer information and systems and processes so that the organization can manage itself effectively and to be certificated on an internationally recognized basis as having an information security management system that meets an international standard. really for small and medium businesses, frankly, achieving ISO 27001 is not just about protecting data, it's also about building trust with customers, gaining a competitive edge, and laying a foundation for best practice security to drive sustainable growth. At the moment, there are only somewhere between 70 and 80,000 companies around the world who have an ISO 27001 certificate. That compares with about 1 million that have an ISO 9001 certificate, and about pushing 500,000 that have an ISO 45001, that's the Environmental Management System certificate. So it's still a area of being on the leading edge, of being competitive, of doing something that many of your competitors probably are not yet doing. And even though you're being pushed to do it, perhaps by customers, by compliance demands, the reality is that you're still going to be a leading organization in terms of getting ISO 27001 in place. So it's become the international cybersecurity trust mark. It meets the contract requirements of many customers. The impetus for getting ISO 27001 often is, I have a customer who requires it of me. Having got it, you can win additional business. There's evidence to suggest that companies who have ISO 27001 are usually able to not only trigger more inquiries, but close more business than those without. It certainly simplifies the contract qualification and RFP, RFQ response processes, because being able to put up your ISO 27001 certificate can save you from a lot of time and effort in filling in long, extensive forms. It demonstrates legal and regulatory compliance. It helps you meet stakeholder and employee assurance expectations. And of course, being able to demonstrate that you've not just said you're applying best practice, but are actually applying best practice, that can help you manage and mitigate cyber risk, to reduce disruptions and to reduce the possibility of penalties. So the benefits are very significant, and you can look at them graphically as well: winning new business and retaining existing customers, avoiding financial penalties, protecting and enhancing your reputation, meeting a broad range of compliance, legal, contractual, regulatory requirements. And we see now that most organizations have to comply with 6 or more frameworks or standards, whether that's Cyber Essentials and ISO 27001 and UK GDPR, and maybe other standards or laws, PCI, etc. And a good information security management system can improve your around how you manage information security, how you manage access policies, reduce the need for supplier and regulatory audits, because again, you can say, here's my certificate, you don't really need to come and audit me. I, after all, have an external auditor doing this at least once a year. And from a management point of view, it gives you an independent opinion about your security management, and therefore your posture, your status in relation to your contractual and compliance obligations. So how do you go about getting ISO 27001? What I might call the traditional do-it-yourself approach looks something like this. Number one, you go get senior management support. And senior management, mostly in my experience, aren't interested in the process of getting ISO 27001. If they have to have it, they'd like to be able to pay some money and have it. But you need to get their support not only to provide budget, but to have, but to walk the walk, to demonstrate their involvement, to be committed to ISO 27001, to oversee the ISO 27001 implementation project. Develop a comprehensive project plan, clear objectives, timelines, responsibilities, who's your project team, put together who has to do what and in what order, break the transition into manageable phases and set realistic milestones, and then do a thorough gap analysis. See exactly what you are doing against the requirements of ISO 27001, bearing in mind that you'll be doing quite a number of those things, because that enables you to focus on where your gaps are and therefore what you need to do in order to get to ISO 27001 compliance. Prioritize action around that, build out a project plan, fill in all the details, aim at what you've got to do, and that's going to help you identify the need for you to have a number of people trained that you might not have thought about. So not just staff awareness training, but you're going to need to train people internally on implementation, on audit. You're going to need to train a number of teams so that they can understand how to create the processes which you'll need them to create. And then you can get on with creating the policies and procedures that ISO 27001 mandates. And there's a number of mandated policies and procedures, and of course the catch-all of anything else that you might need in order to ensure the ISMS does what it should be doing. So you get on with creating your documentation. A lot of that documentation will be driven by your risk assessment, your process for risk management, which needs to be documented so that it delivers reproducible and consistent results. That's going to help you select the controls you should have in place, and then you're going to implement the controls, quite a lot of which will go back to documentation, quite a lot of which will be maybe technology, will be maybe training, but you implement the controls that you need to have in place, and you need to review the effectiveness of those controls. And then you move into the continual improvement period, which is about a continual improvement register, about internal audits, about management review, and generally making sure the ISMS is working effectively, and you're learning from the lessons of what has and hasn't worked inside the organization. So that's the traditional approach to implementing ISO 27001. I wrote a book about it. It's called 9 Steps to Success. It's been published for quite a long time. You can buy it through IT Governance. You can buy it through a number of normal booksellers, mostly online specialist booksellers, but how to implement ISO 27001, and whether it's 2013 or 2022, the process, the 9-step process is pretty well exactly the same. So you can buy a book that will help in a lot of detail. It's only £30 or something, and help you work out how to do it. How long does it take is one of the biggest questions, one of the most frequent questions, the 2 most frequent questions clients ask us. Do it yourself is typically, for small and medium business, about 18 months because of the time it takes you to learn how to do it, the training, recruiting people, the going up blind alleys, the finding out you did it wrong, working out how to make it work effectively. With additional resource, so people are not adding it to their day job, you take on maybe another person who's going to be an ISO 27001 project manager, drive. It's probably about a 12-month project. Using a platform I'll talk about in a minute called Cyber Comply, doing it yourself again with additional resource project management expertise at 6 to 8 months. The FastTrack process, which is a Cyber Comply based approach, is between 2 and 3 months. And that's for organizations between 5 and maybe 5. Consistent approach, pretty standardized approach. And that kind of, those in terms of what does it really cost? Because that's the second question we're typically asked. How much will it cost? And if you're doing it yourself completely, well, it's going to cost you whatever time you divert from what your people normally do to earn a living, but that's unquantifiable. Additional resource typically is about £100,000 in terms of bringing in a couple of people who are going to take on and do the job. They're going to work part-time, full-time, whatever it is, their training, typically about £100,000. If you deploy Cyber Comply, you maybe have one person less from an additional resource point of view, so maybe about £50,000. And then a typical FastTrack, which is a set of the Cyber Comply based approach, is between 2 and 3 months, but it's only about £25,000. It tends to be a fixed price, very straightforward deal. So the FastTrack approach, the Cyber Comply based FastTrack approach, is a very cost-effective, time-efficient way to get the job done very effectively. Now, it's designed to streamline the ISO 27001 process, so it's a clear, sufficient path to get to certification. It's very straightforward. It simplifies what can be an overwhelming process because it breaks it down into a number of manageable steps. The 9 steps that we talk about is in a service description, is in a plan. There are a number of very straightforward things that need to be done. It's supported by expert guidance from a FastTrack consultant who understands what the needs SMBs are, who is able to work Cyber Comply, get the job done in a way that means there's a whole lot of stuff you don't need to learn how to do. And that means that you can achieve certification pretty quickly. You've got a really experienced person doing the critical things, can do it very fast on a platform that is designed to make sure that there is no room for error, and that enables you to get to the point of certification without having to divert a lot of your resource from what your people are there to do. And Cyber Comply is really just a cloud-based information security management platform from us. We're the world's leading ISO 27001 solution provider. The Cyber Comply platform contains everything necessary for building and maintaining an ISO 27001 compliant management system. We built it. We know this is what you have to have. It's passed multiple audits, and you can once you've learned it, once you've got scripts with it, you can implement ISO 27001 out of the box, no room for error, lots of room for time saving, efficiency, and results. So if you look at that as a graph across the 9 steps of to implementation success, the fast track, we do pretty well 8 out of the 9 steps. We need some information, some input from you in order to do it right, but essentially we do all of that stuff. You have to do implementation because the changing work practices, the implementing of processes and procedures, those are things only you can do. You've got to tell your staff what you want them to do differently. You might need to deploy different hardware or software. You do that. We support and guide and help as we do that. But essentially, we do the 9 steps. We get you to certification. We hold your hands through the certification process. And because we know that we do this so well, we usually provide a certification success guarantee to our clients, which says that if you're not certified, we'll put it right at our own cost. You will pass certification. So it's fast, it's quick, it's very efficient. And the kind of does it make sense for your business comes down to the how useful is expert guidance in terms of getting direct support from consultants who have years and years and years of experience of implementing a management system that doesn't just meet the bureaucratic requirements of an external standard, but actually meets those standards in a way that really delivers what you need. It's efficient, and it takes you through each of the steps. It means that your involvement in the process can be time limited so that you can deploy your own resources really efficiently while developing, if you want to, in-house skills to continue the key areas that you need to continue with. The risk assessment process, we've done that multiple times, so that can happen very effectively. The functionality inside Cyber Comply makes it really easy. You can take it over in future, we can look after it for you, but it's a really straightforward, consistent, robust process for doing, and risk assessment is the most important part, frankly, of ISO 27001. It's what drives all of the control selection. It drives security planning, it drives making sure that your ISMS is delivering what you want it to deliver over the long term. Because ISO 27001 is an integrated platform, it enables you simply to tie in whatever other frameworks and standards you need to tie in. So as information security requirements change, Cyber Comply changes. ISO 27001 gets updated, documentation gets updated. The GDPR gets updated. If you're using the GDPR component, it gets updated. All of those additional components are just built into the price. You don't pay extra for some things. There's just a very straightforward. You get access to everything as part of Cyber Comply. So you get transparency, and ISO 27001 Fast Track is a fixed price proposal, so you can budget for what you've got to do, the cost, the resource requirements, nice and clear. Internal audit support is built into that, and as I said, there is a certification guarantee, which if you're under pressure from a client to deliver ISO 27001 certification, we can provide a letter right at the beginning of a project which says our client will be certified, we guarantee that, and that letter can be very helpful in terms of early wins out of your ISO 27001 certification project. So how does the process work? What are the steps towards it? ISO 27001 has 10 clauses. You can, broadly speaking, ignore clauses 1, 2, and 3 because those are the clauses that basically set out how you use the standard. They're the normative references, terms, and definitions. The stuff you have to comply with is clauses 4 through 10. And the heart of ISO 27001, as the graphic shows, is leadership, is management saying, we're going to do this, we're going to support the project. The risk assessment helps you determine what risks you have to deal with, what your legal and regulatory compliance requirements are. Those steps, the identification of risks, the identification of legal, regulatory, and contractual compliance requirements, enables you to determine fundamentally what your control framework needs to look like. That means you can begin documenting it, you can put in place support processes, you can identify what training people might need, you can start operating the ISMS, you can move into the whole performance evaluation, improvement process, all of that in a planned, organized, structured way. So the how you do that is, as I said, it's a very straightforward process. But what the external auditor will be looking for is evidence that your management system, your documented version of ISO 27001, because you need to have documents which reflect all of these things. That your documents comply with these 7 clauses of ISO 27001, but also that you are complying with your own management system. So that's the management system clauses, and this is how we go about tackling it. We put together with you a project mandate. So we define we pull together what will be the information security management system policy, what will be the scope. We facilitate management approval of essential documents. That needs to be demonstrated. That's step 1. Step 2 is get clear about the project's goals. What are the objectives for the ISMS? So both the project and the information security management system deliver on those objectives. That's straightforward. And then we kick off the information security management system. We identify the requirements for each of the processes, the tasks required to develop and implement them. And typically we get those first 3 steps killed off in the first day working with our clients and using CyberComply. CyberComply enables us to pick up this information, and if our client comes to that first session prepared with the data, it's a really fast, straightforward process of getting those first 3 steps done. We then build out the management framework, getting really clear how we're addressing scope and leadership, aligning the information security management system to organization and business objectives. There are a number of other elements that go with building out the management framework, and that leads into what we call the baseline security criteria, which are the security controls that you have to have in place because you've got a customer contract, because there's a regulatory requirement, because there's a statutory requirement, or just because it's a standard business or sectoral requirement. So we get those clear, identify what they are, put them into the risk management process, and we then start looking at what risks you have that needs to be dealt with over and above the baseline requirements. We have a robust information security risk management process. CyberComply's risk assessment tool does that. It's got a risk assessment wizard, so we can whiz through it, and that then produces automatically the risk treatment plan and the statement of applicability. Both of those are mandatory documents that you have to have. There's a standard format that they need to appear in. They need specific approvals. They need version control. All of that is automated inside CyberComply. So the process of getting your mandatory documents done and updating them, because you'll find, frankly, as you go through the project, oh, hang on a minute, we forgot this risk. So you need to keep going back and amending and improving, and you need to produce new versions of statement of applicability and risk treatment plan as you go. All of that managed automatically inside CyberComply. This then is the bit that you've got to do. You've got to implement the controls. You've got to take the documented processes, which wherever possible reflect the things that you are doing. If the things that you are already doing fit in with your control objectives, your risk appetite, then all we're really doing is documenting them. Where there are risks you've identified and new controls you need to roll out, then you'll need to be making sure that those are in place. And we support that process. When identifying controls, we also identify how we're going to measure and monitor the effectiveness of the controls. It's an ISO 27001 requirement that you identify how the ISMS is helping you achieve your objectives, and that means you've got to measure and monitor the effectiveness. And so we put that together. The measures sit inside CyberComply. We can track that information. It feeds into which is the key element of how you review all of your overall performance. And that then you go into the external certification or the final step in the process, and we will ensure that that goes without a hitch. So that's the approach. That's how we manage it. It's, as I said, because of the combination of expertise and CyberComply can be done very, very quickly. To view the key resource requirements are you need to provide key information. So we'll manage your time to minimize disruption, but there's critical information to get. There's stuff to set us up properly. There's information about how you manage documents. There's information about existing controls, processes, assets. We need to get all that information from you in as structured a way as possible so that we can feed it in and we can push the forward. You already should have a basic level of cybersecurity, because to a very substantial extent, what we're doing is building on your current controls, and you will have that in place. You already have processes for managing access to applications. You'll have controls around administration, around document information security, and so on. So we'll be building on your existing cybersecurity processes. You need to be able to implement the controls. And that typically will go into the existing IT and management teams. There will be areas of changes in behavior. HR will have roles to play. There will be additional things for people to do, but again, they shouldn't be significantly onerous, because a large part of that you should be doing. But that's the crucial element. The implementation of controls is the bit that you will do. And then we need to get through the certification audit. So if you're looking after audit, you would be doing that typically for the FastTrack. We're going to hold your hand through the audit because the external auditor is auditing you. We will make sure that they get the right answers to the questions. And then either you or us, there's a separate option, will maintain the information security management system going forward. And let me just turn to and talk a bit about that going forward element. What happens after implementation? And the requirement, as I said, is for ISO 27001. It must deliver compliance with the mandatory requirements of ISO 27001. So that's clauses 4 through 10. It says you must do the following things. You must have the following documents. You must document your objectives. You must do those. You must be able to demonstrate that you're complying with those requirements. And that's a review of documentation. Does your documentation reflect what ISO 27001 says? The second thing is, which legal, regulatory, and contractual obligations are applicable? Have you identified them in your ISO 27001 ISMS? And are they built into your documentation? GDPR would be an obvious example. And then the third thing that the project should deliver is that you're complying with those policies and procedures that are within your information security management system. So, consistent and full compliance. The controls complied all of the time, everywhere that's in scope and working effectively. That's what the auditors will be looking for, and continual improvement in the ISMS, delivering on your information security objectives. A big part of achieving that is through audits. Internal audits is a critical role in evaluating the effectiveness of your ISMS. And it's an objective assessment, so internal audit typically done by somebody other than whoever implemented the management system. In our FastTrack offering, that includes the price of internal audit. Internal audit is done by a specialist internal auditor, not by the practitioner who's implemented the management system. So you get the internal view. That's a key step in making sure that it's actually working as it should be. Internal audit, the information from monitoring and reviewing and so on all goes into a management review, which is a minimum once a year process. That's where top level management is able to assess the performance of the ISMS, its alignment with the business objectives, go, yep, it's relevant, it's doing what it should be doing, it's right on the button. And you should be looking at external auditors to add value. They shouldn't just be coming along to go, look, we haven't found anything. You should be pushing external auditors who are another experienced external eye to look for opportunities for improvement. You should see non-conformities as them adding value. They're finding things that you don't have to find out for yourself. So all of those insights are vital in maintaining a strong ISMS. And the certification audit is while it's critical for getting certification, it will lead into at least an annual surveillance visit. So the auditors will come back through the 3-year period of your certification to make sure the management system is continuing to perform as it should perform. And because for the FastTrack anyway, the implementation is done on the CyberComply platform, it's really straightforward for internal and external auditors to log onto the platform, access the documentation, see what it is, see the evidence of compliance. It's all in the platform. So it's designed to, again, reduce cost, improve efficiency, make life really easy for the people who are being audited. So that kind of leads into the concept of accredited certification. Information security management system, with management committed to building an ISMS from a clarity about cost, project time. You design and implement an ISMS that meets those requirements, does those key things. Those are typically where the key objectives of the ISMS are focused. Internal audit is the key first piece of evidence to management that the ISMS is delivering on its objectives. The certification process, which is the stage 1 audit, certification auditors review your documentation, decide whether it matches the requirements of ISO 27001, and then a stage 2 audit where they come on site or remotely, as the case may be, and audit your compliance with your documentation. So certification audit stage 1 and stage 2. Recertification is only what we currently call stage. No review of the documentation. There's simply a recertification, but it's a comprehensive review of everything. And in between certification and recertification, which is a 3-year period, there's a continual assessment visit, or a checkup, if you like, by your certification body, coming to make sure that you're continuing to do the things that you should be doing. And certification, again, you may well be aware of this, but takes place within a recognized international accredited certification framework. So certification is granted by a certification body. It could be BSI, it could be DNV, it could be Bureau Veritas, it could be DAX, it could be any one of a number of certification bodies. Certification bodies are accredited by a national accreditation body. DAX is a German accreditation body, ANAB in the US, UCAS in the UK. There's typically only one certification body, one accreditation body for each country, and it typically operates by means of a memorandum of agreement with the national government, and all of the accreditation bodies are members either via the European Cooperation for Accreditation, EA, or directly of the IAF. And it's through that membership of the IAF that you get the international acceptance of the recognition. So your certificate might be issued in the UK or France or Holland or the United States. The fact is issued by Bureau Veritas, who is accredited by UCAS, means that that certificate will be recognized everywhere around the world, which means you can comply once for multiple recognitions with multiple clients in multiple jurisdictions. So, turning really beyond ISO 27001, ISO 27001 is dealing with the critical domains, people, process, and technology, making sure that your controls are effective across all of those areas. What Cyber Comply does is enable you to go a big step on from that. The Cyber Comply security and privacy ecosystem includes not only ISO 27001, but all the other international standards that might be relevant. It includes all the other regulations, cybersecurity, AI that might be relevant. And they're all built into the Cyber Comply platform. So you can access on Cyber Comply or through Cyber Comply, you can access the functionality and documentation that you need in the ecosystem, access books and guidance, you can access staff awareness training, and you can access professional competence training consultants that can help implement in any one of those areas. So you could think of ISO 27001 implementation, the FastTrack process, as something that can be repeated for multiple other standards. And because it's IT governance, you're not left on your own. You're not left saying, yeah, I've got a platform, now what do I do? You not only can draw on expertise to implement the management standard, but you can draw on expertise to deal with the myriad other issues that in today's complicated world you increasingly have to deal with, whether it's vulnerability scanning, it's penetration testing, privacy by design, business continuity planning, any one of those elements that build real cyber defense in depth. All of that is available through the Cyber Comply platform. And Cyber Comply, in other words, enables you to go significantly beyond ISO 27001. The automated risk assessment, yes, you need humans to provide input into it, but it's automated, generates the ISO 27001 documents, can go further on and look at risks in relation to personal data, which is a kind of slightly different risk scale, can integrate GDPR controls into your ISO 27001 management system, can map the Annex A controls to multiple frameworks. There are something like 30-odd frameworks available in Cyber Comply. So you can, for the same price, get multiple compliance frameworks in place. You can track incidents in line with regulatory requirements. You can, there's an API about to launch which enable the incident tracking module to talk directly to service desk, so you can manage incidents from start to finish. You can deal with stakeholders. The incident logging and task management functionality inside Cyber Comply is special. It enables you to manage everything from one place to drive across the whole of an organization everything that you need to do. And the people that you're sending tasks to, they don't need licenses. It's just a standard part of how Cyber Comply is meant to work. And there is an intuitive real-time dashboard that enables you not only incident management, but to look at everything that's going on inside the management system to make sure that it is doing what you want it to be doing. What it really enables you to do, in other words, is build cyber defense in depth. So the mapping that you see in ISO 27002 of controls to identify, protect, detect, respond, recover is exactly what you can do inside cyber comply. You can build cyber defense in depth by pulling the different controls and the different activities that you need to be able to deploy those controls into a unified, integrated, and structured strategy, which meets the requirements around confidentiality, integrity, and availability, but recognizes that cyber and privacy risks are just different sides of the same coin. So you get all of that out of cyber comply. Customers kind of like it. So customer said it's been a business enabler, user-friendly tool, made risk assessments helpful. Customer said it saved them some £50,000 in terms of implementing ISO 27001. A number of big brands already using the product. So don't risk it, cyber comply it is kind of the mantra that we have. And turning then finally to the solutions that we have, obviously there is cyber comply. And when you get the slides, and the slides will be available to everybody, you get all of the features, all of the functionality at a standard price. We don't charge you extra for another 2 modules. You get everything. It's a very straightforward price. It's a very comprehensive offering. It's got a very comprehensive roadmap. So buying at today's price, you're buying everything that comes over the next 12 months. So it's a really good value deal. But there you are. That's the functionality that you get with ISO Cyber Comply. And you get also access to a very inexpensive maintenance service. Because we're maintaining your management system through Cyber Comply, it can be done very cost effectively. It means that you can achieve the ongoing maintenance, monitoring, review, internal audit activities, combined with expert advice on what you need to be doing. What one client talks to us as holding their toes to the fire. All of that can be done cost effectively through the ISO 27001 FastTrack managed services. And for those of you who want to do it yourself, you can train with our experts to understand how to implement it. There's a lead audit course. If you have an existing ISO 27001 2013 certificate, you can go on one of our transition training courses. It's a single-day course, and you can update to comply with and be able to demonstrate that you have a certificate that enables you to implement or audit the 2022 ISO 27001. And for those of you thinking about transition, remember that it's the ISO 27001 2022 is the only option from the end of October 2025. So there's about 18 months left to make sure that if you are currently at 2013 certified, you make the transition. That's the critical piece of timing. So, folks, that brings me to the end of what I was planning to say. This is now the opportunity for any questions which anybody has got. I will just reiterate, if you have questions, please go to the question section in the GoToWebinar. You can type a question in there. What I'll do is I'll pick out any questions there are. I'll share the question with you, and then I'll answer it. I'll just give you a couple of minutes for those of you who might want to put a question in there to do that. I'll just give you a couple of minutes to do that. So just picking up then questions, as I said, do put them into the thing. Is there an advantage to K-12 schools in being 27001 compliant? Yes. The advantages, while you don't find yourself contracting for client work terribly often, being able to demonstrate compliance and security from a funding point of view, from a regulatory point of view, something which ensures that you are genuinely secure and compliant is a really sensible thing to do. Does the service include advice on physical security and clean desk policies or just cyber? The answer is it covers everything that the ISO 27001 service, requires. So it will deal with physical security, it'll deal with environmental security, we'll deal with staff training and awareness, we'll deal with with everything. So while we talk about it being a cybersecurity standard, it is much more broadly, it calls itself an information security management system standard. It thinks of cybersecurity as being a portion of that. I tend to use cybersecurity and information security interchangeably because, if your physical controls are weak, then you're going to have a cyber breach. But yes, it's a simple answer. It deals with every single component of what you need to do to have an effective working information security management system. Looking at what ISO certifications are covered, 9001, 27018, 27018. Are these an additional cost? No, they're not. All of the frameworks and standards that are available inside CyberComply are available. If you've signed up to it, there's a standard price depending on the number of key users that you have. You get access to everything. So our driver here was to put you in a position where when a client comes along and says, actually, I need you to comply with ISO 27701, the SIS 18 controls. You don't have to go, now I've got to pay more for another module on CyberComply. You just turn to CyberComply and you go, okay, now I need to comply with this. What do I need to do? You can update your statement of applicability. You can simply get on with identifying inside CyberComply without having to spend any more money on what you do. So it's designed to make your compliance life as future-proof as it possibly can be. Of course, you'll need some expertise to do that. If you've got the expertise, you're in the right place. Questions? The slides are available for those of you who want them as a handout. So if you go to the handout section of this, you should be able to download the slides. ISO 42001 will be added. That's the AI standard, will be added in due course. We've got an AI policy already in the documentation availability. I'm pretty sure that, yeah, there is, the AI policy is in there already. Folks, any other questions you would like to ask of me? If there are, please do type them into the GoToWebinar question box. Looks as though perhaps not. So in that case, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for coming on the webinar today. I hope you found it useful. I hope the idea of ISO 27001 implementation, which is designed to make your life really easy, get you to the point where the outcome is a really secure management system that wins you lots of plaudits, customers, and success. I hope you find the idea interesting. Please do get in contact with us, talk to us. We're very happy to any aspect of it. You can get hold of us through any one of our websites. The offering is exactly the same, whether it's in the UK, Europe, or the United States. The regulations might be slightly different that are relevant, but they're all available. We don't have different, it's the same options available in every one of those jurisdictions. So do get in touch with us. Thank you very much for being with us today, and do have a safe and secure rest of this week. Thank you and bye-bye.